Hello everyone, today I'm going to go over how to set up object health and a small text um, object to show and reflect what health you currently have. In order to do so, I'm going to be using Textmeshpro, and to do that we're going to go to Windows, Package Manager, and down here you'll see Textmeshpro. Go ahead and install. It'll take just a couple seconds. Once that is done, you'll see down here it says remove, so that means it's installed currently, and you have the options to use Textmeshpro if you wish. So what we're going to do is throw Textmeshpro on this. We're going to go to UI. We'll right click on your cube first. On your cube. UI Textmeshpro. And what it's going to do is it's also going to throw an event system in here. These are needed for any UI elements. You only need one per scene. So if I go and I throw another Textmeshpro under anything else, or any of these other objects, it's not going to create a new event system. It already has one. So we'll get rid of that. Now the one thing we do need to do is to scale this down, because currently it's trying to go over the full screen here. So in game, if we look at it, it says new text right in the middle. That's because it's using the screen space overlay. What we want to do, what I'm going to do at least, is we're going to go down to world space and give it our main camera. Now that it's in world space, we can go to our width and height and set this down to a lower number. I'm going to set it to a 2x2. And if I reset this transforms position, it'll pop down to the middle of the canvas. The only problem now is even if I move it, the text is still way too big. That's because the text here is not properly set. It's set as 36. You can auto size it, and it'll give you two different minimum size and a maximum size to use. But it is still too big. So what we're going to do is scale this down until we get to a size you want to use, which for us is going to be really small. This rect transform itself is set way too big than what the actual canvas is, so we need to scale this down as well. Set this 2x2, and if we look at it now, we had scaled down the minimum size, and you can see that it's getting smaller and smaller. Can't do a 0.0. If we do 0.01, it may work. Max size, say 5. We don't have to do an auto size. We can uncheck that and drag down the font size itself. And now we'll do the same thing that we just did. We can see it's getting smaller and smaller. 0.32 looks nice. We'll go 0.35. Now what I do normally is align this. We're going to align it centered and within the middle of the viewport of this canvas itself. So now it's hovering right above. Once that's done, the only other thing I like to do is to come down to our vertex color and change this to a color you can see a little better. For me, I like using red. Now if we go in game, you can see my camera sitting on the back side of it, so you can see it, but it's not set correctly. So we can just move the camera itself. Click on the camera, Control Shift F, and now it's set to the front. From here, we're going to be moving into our cube. We're going to make a new component called health script. Create an add. Since I created it there, I want to come back over here and pull the script into the scripts folder. And now we're going to open this up and start on what we want to do. For this demo, I'm just going to create a small health script that takes damage every time you press this key on the keyboard. It could be any key you wish to have, but the main function we want is one called take damage. Void take damage. And when we take damage, we want to be able to give it a number. So we're going to give it an integer that I call value. And that value is going to be like subtracted from your health. So the easiest way to do this, we're going to create a new integer. Integers are just full numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. They could be negative numbers as well. Normally you don't use those though. Once your health gets down below 0 or is 0, that object is destroyed or whatever you wish it to do. So we're going to be using integer health, and we'll set this to 10. You can also set your health on start if you wanted, instead of initializing it up there. Health equals 10, so we don't have to set the value here unless we want to. Either way is fine. And then down here, once you take that new value in, you want to subtract it from your health value. So your health minus equals that value that came in. So this means your health is now equal to your health minus that value. So if this was a 1, it'd be 10 minus 1 equals 9. And then what we want to do is to check to see if that health is less than or equal to 0. Alright, we're going to put this in a statement. If your health is less or equal to 0, then we want it to do something. And in our case, we want it to destroy itself. So there's a function called destroy. And we're going to destroy this game object, this cube that it's on. Now the only other things we need is an update. We're going to do an if statement. If your input get key down is equal to key code dot, we'll do something different. We'll do an L. Actually, let's do J dot J to do a minus, and we'll call that take damage function, and we're going to throw in a value of 1. Now since it's a positive 1, it gets put here, and then the health minus that value. Now if we go back and we play, I should be able to hit this 10 times, and on the 10th time, it destroys itself. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And it destroyed itself. Now the only problem with this is we can't really see what's going on. What we can do is, this is why we threw the text on here. We could take this new text and set a value in here to let it know exactly where this health is at. In order to do so, we're going to be using Tmpro, which is Textmeshpro that we just added. And we need a reference. We need a reference to the text mesh itself. And in order to do that, it's going to be Textmeshpro UGUI, which is a graphical user interface, I believe. It's just the name of what the text is. We'll just put text. Simple enough. On start, we're going to grab this from the cube, or actually we don't want to do that because it's a childed object. It's not on the cube itself. What I mean by that is in here, it's not set like the mesh render. When we grab from the mesh render, it will set to the same object that the health is set to. But in this one, it's going to be a childed object. So there's a couple ways we can do this. We can grab it by doing, we can still do a get component. Since it's the only text object in the child, or in the children of this object, we can do text equals get component and child. And then, let me see. There we go. Get a component in children. Textmeshpro UGUI. And this should be able to grab it. If not, there's another way you could do this, and all you have to do is set this to public and save it. Once you go back, you'll see the health has a new variable exposed, which is your text, and you can just drag and drop. There you go. So now it has a reference to that. So we'll get rid of this since we just did that. This is called a comment. It tells the system not to read anything on this line. So if I comment out one of these brackets by accident, it's going to give me a problem with everything after. So we don't want to do that, but it helps. We use we use this to help comment in our code, saying health is equal to 10 on start, or down here where we got the health minus value, we can set health equals health minus incoming value. We can read this here, but we can't read anything after these two. So next, what we need to do is actually update this text. So in update, easiest way to do this is we go text.text. So the text is the object reference, and then we drill down into it with the dot. And what this is doing is if we come back here, let it load, text is the reference to this Textmeshpro. Okay? Now when we put a dot, we drill down. We can drill down and try to go to the text style, the font assets, the material presets. We could do anything else down here. We could set font size if we wish to make it bigger or smaller. We can change the colors. So what we're doing is grabbing the text.text, which is where this one is. So if we grab text.text, we can make this say whatever we wish it to say. So we'll start it by just putting an O. Why not? Now let us know once it grabs it, it will update it. So text.text itself is equal to, we could do this two ways. We could do this plus health, meaning this is an empty statement. I could put health, I could put whatever else in there, but it's an empty statement plus health. The other way to do it is do text.text equals health dot to string, and this will tell it to turn itself into a string value. String value is what this is. So now if we go back into it, that we know that on start it turns to 10. So when we start this, that text value should turn to 10. Oh, there you go. Now every time you hit J, remember it's going to subtract. Every time we hit J, it's going to subtract 1 from it. 9, 8, and so on. Now what you can also do is if you want to add to it, you could do the same thing and put .get key down key code .l, right? And instead of take damage 1, we're going to do -1, which should tell it to add instead of subtract. We'll find out. So J, or L, yeah, J, the minus, and L does not because I did not do the. So the reason it's doing this is because it's doing 2 minuses. If I wanted it to actually add, I would do health is plus equals to the value. So I'd want to make my minus value and my plus value different. Swap those two. So minusing and then plussing. I know it's a little confusing, but as long as I stay above 0, nothing happens to this cube until I get to 0 and it destroys. That's pretty much it for this tutorial. I've shown you how to set up Textmeshpro, how to minimize or scale down the canvas itself, how to set your references inside the cube, and how to do a quick take damage function within the health script. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.